Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here with me today. This is our first OneKloudX user group event for the year. So appreciate you making the effort to come in, and I'll jump through into the actual agenda for today, what we intend to go through with relation to the boards, the Kanban boards functionality in NetSuite that's available as we speak, and then go through the actual configuration and setup of it, and then also have a user who's using the Kanban board in organization to talk us through how they're doing it. So, okay, so the agenda for today is, for those who haven't used Demio, it's an events-based solution. On the right-hand side, you'll have a chat. So feel free to ask any questions that come to mind throughout the session. I'll walk through the Kanban board solution that's currently being used by a few of our clients out there today, and talk about the flexibility of the solution and how potentially you can utilize it within your organization. And then I'll jump and introduce Ian to you. He's from FMG Engineering to talk you through how they're currently utilizing the solution. And then I'll go through a little bit of the pricing elements and wrap up with any questions that you may have at the end. But like I said, feel free to ask questions as we go. Love this to be as interactive as possible. So a little bit about me, for those who don't know me. Started OneKloudX a few years ago. We've been implementing NetSuite for the last 5 years in this organization, and many years before that, and have been in the ecosystem for the last 20 odd years in ERP, both locally and internationally. So that's a little bit about me. Now I'll jump into the actual solution itself. So today I'll be, hopefully you can all see my screen, it must be coming up. So I've logged into our sandbox environment at OneKloudX. So I'm using the OneKloudX environment to do the demo today. You'll see within the actual solution, there is a Kanban drop-down equivalent. So the actual solution is built on the NetSuite platform. All the configuration is utilizing NetSuite functionality, which includes save searches and the like. And I'll talk you through the whole setup as I go right now. So if I jump into a separate tab under the Kanban configuration section, I've set up individual Kanban boards for different transaction types. So ones that we've got set up include opportunities, cases, one for a home page, project tasks, a specific one that we've been playing with at OneKloudX for project tasks, as well as one for resource allocations. Now, this can also include multiple transaction types, so you don't need to be incorporating one transaction like an opportunity or a case within the Kanban board. You do have the capabilities of grouping multiple transaction types together, because it's the save search that drives what you see on the Kanban board. So if I jump into the opportunities one, all right, it's a pretty simple setup. First setup is the JSON file. So this is the background file that shows, or that the solution uses in order to structure how the individual swim lanes are set up, how the individual cards are viewed on the Kanban board, and then that JSON file utilizes the save search in order to bring across any of the information that's on that save search to be represented on the Kanban board for that particular card. Right, so within a Kanban board, you've got the boards with the individual swim lanes, and those swim lanes are fully configurable based on what's in the JSON file, depending on the record type. And then what is displayed on the actual cards is based on the actual NetSuite save search capabilities that are in the system today. Right, so if I just bring up this example of the Kanban save search, so if I say Kanban open op. All right, there's nothing special about this save search. It's just the standard save search in NetSuite that will bring all the actual information across. And it will use all the standard elements with formulas, all the other elements within that save search. And we've got some formulas in here to represent different colors of the actual record that is therefore used within the actual Kanban board card for that individual record. So you can see we're using the opportunity, we're only including opportunities that are based on that are not closed lost or closed won. We only want open opportunities, and these are the actual results. So you can see just standard results as what you've got in Save Search in NetSuite, And then based on that, you can drive your formulas and the like. And it's whatever in this saved search is what's driven on the Kanban board, right? The actual JSON file itself, like I said, we have a few of these JSON files that have been pre-templated. So if we were to implement, we'd utilize the JSON files for each and every transaction type and then rework those depending on how you want the Kanban board to look. So that's just the setup of the Kanban board. Very simple, very easy, uses standard NetSuite functionality coupled with the JSON file for how the actual board is to work. Now, if I jump into the actual Kanban board itself, right, you can see that the actual board is utilizing the URL from NetSuite. So again, it's a NetSuite record and using the NetSuite data in the background to show the board. So if I jump into the open cases example, this is now showing me the Kanban board for open cases at OneKloudX in the sandbox environment. So what's in the JSON file is the actual swim lanes, right? So how you structure the swim lanes, the sequence of each individual swim lane, whether it's taken up half the page or the full page, is all configurable within that JSON file, right? So at the moment, and therefore the colors at the top are all represented within the actual individual board. So anything that's critical, that has a status of critical or urgent or medium or non-urgent is all represented within the actual Kanban board color, right? Over here, you also have a search capability. Now that search can be for any field in NetSuite, whether it's a standard field or custom fields. So if I want to search for all the Ferrari records for cases, I just type in Ferrari, and in real time, without even hitting the refresh button, it will show me all the individual cases for Ferrari. I can obviously delete that, refresh, and the system will therefore refresh the Kanban board again, right? So that's a nice little search capability, similar sort of way like you've got in the global search of NetSuite. And then you also have the ability, if you want to, therefore restrict the search to relevant fields in NetSuite. Over here, you also have the filter section, which can go in further and drill where you may want to be looking at only specific cases pertaining to an individual person that is assigned those cases. So if I refresh that, I'll only now see the cases that are related to Carl, and you'll see a nice little number 1 there advising that. And then at the top here, you've also got the ability to go into the intranet site. So if you've got an intranet within the organization or any other links, that you want to incorporate into the Kanban board, that can be used as well, without having to therefore hit the OneKloudX section that will take you back to the actual Kanban board. Back to the actual main area. You also have the ability on the right-hand side over here to actually choose the individual boards that you may want to go. So I can jump from one board to another within the actual board. So I can open up one for opportunities. I can open up the other for project tasks. And now I've got multiple tabs with multiple boards showing up on my screen based on the tabs, in the same way as if you would use NetSuite. Now, once I'm actually within the actual board, the individual cards will have bits of information on it, right? Now, that information is coming from the saved search record, or coming from the saved search that's been set up that's tied to the Kanban configuration record I showed earlier, right? The sequence of the actual fields is all configurable based on your JSON file. So anything you see over here in blue can be changed, right? So we can obviously change the individual record and update to say, well, this is now going to be assigned to Craig, and then we can save that record, and then the record gets updated accordingly within the actual Kanban board. So you don't have to, jump into, the actual NetSuite record. You can see now it's come off Carl's list, right? So that's how easily you can update it. The other way you can update it as well is you can look at the case details. So at the bottom here, you've got the individual elements of the case, who the case is, for the customer, who it's assigned to, the date, the information on the case. But if you want to drill further and look at the actual case information, you have the ability to show the detail, where a pop-up will come up, and then you'll have the ability to look at more information on that case, coupled with looking at any individual history that has happened on the case. So any updates, this actually uses the system information to actually look at what updates have happened on that particular record, in this example, that case. So, and the other thing is we can actually move it across. So when we're actually ready to you know, if we want to move it to being awaiting NetSuite response or on hold, we can update the actual drag and drop of that card, and it will in real time update that actual record in NetSuite accordingly. If we want to jump in and take a look at the case details as well, you can just hit that little icon there to review the case, and it'll take you into NetSuite and look at that individual case as well. So the great thing here is that every individual board will have different swim lanes, will have different filter capabilities, will have different information that is configured based on that individual board. So if I jump into another board and look at opportunities as an example, you'll be able to see that the actual swim lanes, the information there, and what you see is all different to the one I just showed you around cases, where here you're seeing all the individual opportunity statuses, where it's in discussion, proposal, purchasing, negotiation, on hold, and the rest. And the same level of capabilities you've got. But in this example, you can see you can jump into the opportunity details, you can create a new opportunity on the fly, and so on and so forth, and you can expand and take a look at the individual record. Otherwise, you can jump and show the details as well in the same way and update the actual record accordingly and save it, and then also save that record. So it's every individual Kanban board can have its own bit of information, right? So the one we've actually spent a bit of time on. So if I jump into the project task board, if I go into OneKloudX project tasks and open that one up. So this is now looking at NetSuite projects, NetSuite project tasks, whether you're using basic projects in NetSuite or you're using advanced projects or suite projects in NetSuite. The information that you will have on the board will be different depending on which one you're using, but it does have the ability to utilize both basic and suite projects as well. All right, so over here you can see all the individual project tasks that are available. So we've also gone in, and this is how we manage the actual project tasks internally at OneKloudX when we're managing implementations or services that we deliver to our clients. We wanted to be able to take a look at in real time what the actual versus the allocated versus the budget time. So in this particular finance first implementation we're working on at the moment for trusting services, we can see that there's 10 hours that have been spent based on an allocated hours of 142 across the consultants based on a budget time of 36, right? So at the moment we've spent 10 hours actual. We need to review what allocations we've got, and then we can obviously easily open that up and take a look at the information, right? Update the start and end dates based on that, or any other field that we configure as part of the JSON file to enable updates directly into NetSuite, right? So the authorization element around how a person or a user will use this in NetSuite is based on NetSuite permissions. So if a user does not have access to updating project records or project tasks, they won't be able to have that visibility in the Kanban board. So it uses the NetSuite roles and NetSuite authorizations to enable what they can and cannot do in the actual Kanban board, right? So in this example here, it's trusting service. Like I said, you have the ability to click on that. It will take you into the actual NetSuite project record, and you can make updates directly in a NetSuite. Otherwise, you have the ability to also take a look at the task details. We also have the ability to go and allocate resources. So this is where we go in and allocate individual resources accordingly for that particular task. So you can see it's brought across the project task, the project record, and I can save that. And therefore, it will therefore update the actual resource allocation. And I'll show you how a resource therefore is able to view what activities they've got assigned to them. We also have the ability to enter timesheets as well. So this is where a resource can go and enter timesheets or view timesheet entries. And the same thing, like if once I've scheduled that, I can then move that across, and then it'll therefore update the Kanban board effectively to go from the to-do piece of work in the board to now being scheduled and allocated to the individual resources, right? So it's like I mentioned, right? We can add any individual functions in here, whether it's to update certain elements in the Kanban board without having to jump into NetSuite, or or going into NetSuite accordingly and doing different elements as well. So as a project manager, you'd manage your individual tasks and manage your allocations. And then when it's time for the resources to kind of look at what they've got allocated to them, then we've actually created another Kanban board for the individual week that will then show all the resources based on filters as well. So if I want to look at Carl and refresh, it will show all of Carl's allocations for that individual week, where he can then go in and actually enter his timesheets accordingly. So if I enter time, he'd be able to go in there and put his timesheets where it will bring across Carl as the resource, the customer, the default task, update the service item for it, how many hours he's worked on it with some memo, he's worked an hour on it, and then that is now created timesheet that's been entered in NetSuite, all from the actual Kanban board. Once Carl has stipulated he's finished that particular task, he can therefore go and update that actual task and close that task off just by updating the actual status. So he'll go in here and say, yep, I've done that task, I'm finished, completed, save, and now it would actually come off his actual task for what he needed to do on Monday. I hope that all makes kind of sense to you all. So just to round this up again, right? This is just me walking through an example of how we at OneKloudX do it. When Ian comes on later, he'll talk about how they're doing it as well. But this is not restrictive in any single way, right? You may also utilize the Kanban boards for managing item fulfillments, right? Where we've got individual picked, packed, and shipped statuses where all the individual sales orders or item fulfillments will come through. And then you can easily just drag and drop the actual record and it will update the actual item fulfillment in real time. So that's another example. Another example is approvals, right? So you may want a person to see all the individual transactions that they've got to approve. So you can have two swim lanes, which is pending approval, and rejected. And then you can have all individual purchase orders, expenses, sales orders, journals, or any other transactions that you may want to process for approval that will then initiate the workflow in the background that's been set up, the suite flow, to approve those transactions accordingly. So this is just pretty much a representation of how records in NetSuite, any transaction in NetSuite, as long as you have a saved search that brings those transactions across with the relevant information, we therefore set up the actual Kanban board to reflect the individual swim lanes and what visibility and functions you need to do. I just had a question come through from Stuart. Can it show the workflow status? Yes, it can show the workflow status. So the actual status of the workflow would be based on the swim lane, and then you can drag and drop the individual transactions from one swim lane to the other, which will therefore update the workflow status. I hope that answers your question, Stuart. So yeah, so like I said, it's very flexible, very easy to use. And the key here when we do the implementation is to actually get an understanding of the actual swim lanes you want, the transactions we want to manage, and therefore from that, what functions and what information do we need to have in those saved searches to have them represented here on the actual Kanban board based on your business requirements. Can an administrator monitor the status of all PO workflows, for example? Yes, they can. So we can have all individual POs that are relevant to a set of workflows where that the administrator can review where every one of those is at and make comments in it if you want to add particular comments or change individual elements on the fly, or they can also update it accordingly as well as an administrator. So you have the ability to have it as a high level where the administrator is managing the whole Kanban board and can see everything, and then you're restricting it based on the users, based on their authorizations in NetSuite, that they can only view what certain information they can view based on what's in the saved search and what's in the and what's in their authorization to be able to do what they can do. So yeah, an administrator has the ability to an overarching view to manage the full workflow from end to end, whilst individual users can see and monitor and execute based on what they need to do to execute their role. So every Kanban board can be different. So I might have a separate Kanban board. So you can see here, I've got a different Kanban board for tasks, right? This task Kanban board compared to this project task Kanban board is totally different, right? So if I open them up, you'll be able to see that the boards are totally different. The color codes are different, but they're using the same data set. They're using the same project tasks data set, and the color and what you see and how it's all managed and the visibility and the information shown can be different. The functions are different. Like here, you're able to, go in and view the project, task details, allocate a resource, view time entries, view time entry summary, compared to this one here, it only has 2 functions, right? So depending on who you want to give access to for what board, you may be able to restrict it that way as well. Any other questions? Hopefully it's all self-explanatory. It's relatively easy to use. So I'd like to take this opportunity now to introduce Ian, who is the IT manager at FMG. I'll let him introduce himself and also how they're currently utilizing the Kanban board within the organization today.
Well, morning, everyone. It's still morning, so that's good. Thank you, Robert.
Thank
you.
I'm
the manager at FMG Engineering. So FMG is a consulting engineering firm, civil, structural, residential, forensic engineers. We have about 150 people based in Adelaide, Sydney, Melbourne. We've been a NetSuite user since 2014, and the Kanban product here has been a game changer for us. I think it solves 2 major problems, and if you've been a NetSuite user for any length of time, you probably recognize these ones. But the first is NetSuite's incredibly powerful and flexible product, but you tend to struggle with getting people to engage with it for whatever reason. It's either overwhelms people, or it's too complicated, or its interface is perhaps a bit unlovely. So you have a problem with getting people to update what you need to update. And if they're not updating the information, then you have an accuracy problem. So that's the first problem that helps us solve. And the second problem is related to that. Because there's an engagement issue, people tend to reach for some other product. So you'll end up finding people have gone off and spun up a Trello or a Microsoft Planner to manage their workflow, which is all well and fine. As an IT manager, there's a bit of an issue with that, but as a business problem, you want people to be effective. But the problem that creates, of course, is that it's you now have an island of data and they're working in some other space that's not updating your records, further exasperating the problem. So the Kanban nicely solves both of those, and I'll maybe just quickly give you a couple of examples of how FMG is using it. Obviously, we've got a great deal more boards than previously shown, but a couple I'll pick out. So forensic engineering is one of our departments, has a lot of people traveling and on the road, highly transactional, lots of small jobs and customers that have pretty tight SLAs. So that the Kanban has helped us solve many of these problems. The first one, the first board I've shown here, is like a basic slice of all of the work that's waiting to be picked up and its prioritization. So one of our administrators will either take jobs that are just created and put them into priority, and that has an internal meaning for us. It's either based on the customer or the SLA that it has to meet and so on, and then they might move it up and down in these swim lanes depending on whether it has to be done urgently or it has to meet a different SLA and so on. Normal engineers can use this interface as well, and they can, in particular of use is the map view of the cards, so you can switch between the card view, change the priority, and this map view. And for the forensic engineers, this has created or has solved a long-running problem of how to more efficiently tackle these jobs that are out of the cities and do so efficiently. So you can immediately see that if someone was going to go out to this part of South Australia, then they should probably arrange to do both of them, and that's in practice what happens. That one engineer will pick up 2 or 3 of these in a cluster, go there on a single day instead of going out and coming back and then going out again. So it's hard to calculate, but this one feature alone has saved us an enormous amount of fuel and fleet car time and other nice things too. So for example, they're going out to the middle of South Australia, so you can turn on these layers on the map to show you the network, Optus network coverage, for example. So if they're going too far off the beaten track, they need to take a satellite phone with them and things like that. Another view of the same work would be like forensic my job. So this is the engineer's view of their work. Obviously, I'm not an engineer, so there's not much in my board, but you can see how the swim lanes then help with that workflow. So obviously, if I am an engineer, I'd pick up a job, put it in my allocated list, but no inspection is booked. So obviously, I need to go and talk to that person, book an inspection, go out, do it, take my photos, write my report, and put it in peer review, and those steps all the way through the life cycle of a job. This is the one-stop shop for those engineers to do their work. And the last thing I wanted to sort of point out is how the function icons at the top of these cards sort of unify the workflow. So these are essentially just icons that have a URL behind them, but they're fully customizable from data in the card. So from the Save Search that drives the cards, you can build URLs that take you off to other functions. So this one, for example, takes you to the document vault with all of the documentation, drawings, already taken images for that job. The next one along here, for example, our image archive tool, which is an internal thing that lets engineers, when they've been out to site, come back and get all the photos off their phone and put them into the document vault. So that icon is context aware for that card. And as you've seen, it's already filled in the details you need in order to use the tool. So this tightens up the workflow even further, and they essentially don't need to leave this interface at all doing their day-to-day job. You could have those functions, call a phone number if you've got the ability to place calls with a carefully crafted URL, or use it to, a lot of our people use it on the road to route them with the GPS map. So the address is here, and again, there's a location button here that if I click this, I don't know if you can see at the bottom, but that's going to take me straight to Google Maps and route, and which I can then just use directions. So from a mobile phone, this is, basically engineers have everything they need from one interface to sort of get them to and from a job, take their photos, upload it, and come back to the office. It's maybe just so if I linger on the homepage here, you can sort of see that the different sections of our business have Kanban boards. So in particular, it's really helped us lift our CRM ground game. So actually getting interactions with customers recorded in the system and opportunities moving from, in bid to won or lost or follow up has never been better. Even just helping our accounts receivable person follow up customers for payment of invoices is helped by, obviously the outstanding invoices is displayed here. I won't go into them because there's quite a few sensitive names in there, but I think you can get the idea just from the department names and the record types that it's using. And we have a large projects teams as well, so buildings and infrastructure, structural engineers, so their projects, instead of being a single person in a single day, can be multiple people across many months. So it helps us with that as well. I don't know, Robert, did I give you a reasonable flavour of how we're using it? I hope I have.
I think so. Thank you very much for that. Do we have any other questions from anybody? Thank you, Stuart, for all your questions. Hopefully the last one around the colours is answered for you. So hopefully everyone understands the breadth of the solution, how it's easy to set up. I think the only element that we need to, if you are interested, would be to work out and have a workshop at the beginning to identify the swim lanes, the functions, the roles, what updates you're wanting to facilitate across the user group and the like. So let me just go back to the actual presentation. So from a costing standpoint, we've tried to make this cost as simple and as easy as possible. Now, the Kanban solution is unlimited from a user standpoint. So you can have as many users within the solution as possible. Now, do you need a full NetSuite user? Do you need an employee center? That all comes back to the actual updates that you need to do, right? So if you want to look at project information as an example, or look at any information on the Kanban board in that representation, you don't need a full user license or to view it. However, if you are looking to update certain records in NetSuite, so if you're looking to update a sales order that needs a full user license, well, then it needs a full user license. But if you're a services-based company, as an example, you look at all the actual project tasks allocated to you as a resource, and you want to enter timesheets, well, then that timesheet entry element requires the employee center role to be able to facilitate that. You don't need a full user role within NetSuite to represent full user data within NetSuite. So I hope that answers the question.
Robert, it's that's actually been a big saving for us, where we've been able to rebalance the numbers of full licenses and employee centers quite a bit. So yeah, substantial difference in our NetSuite spend as a result. Because one of the things we tried to get with the engagement is to give people more access to things, and then we've been able to scale that back to just what they need, and then use this interface instead.
Because you can represent any record, right? Because it's because it's a safe search. You can show that to anybody in the organization. They don't need a full user license to do so. It's only a license required if they need that person to make updates to full user license records compared to...
So you tend to find the full users are needed for, say, finance, business development people, and your admins, and everyone else just doing their timesheet and doing work and seeing records as an employee center.
Exactly. So it's very simple license model, up to 10 boards. We've got it costed out to $7,750 per annum. And there's a one-time service fee as part of that. So this is to install the bundles on the Sandbox environment, to set up the individual swim lanes, to set up the actual individual cards with the relevant color elements, with the relevant updates, with the relevant functions on there. Hence why it's important that there is that workshop, which is a good 3-4 hour workshop with us to go through all those individual elements, where we're building it on a whiteboard, all the individual elements as to how you want the solution to work. And we do that for 2 individual boards, and then train you up. So if you decide you want to have any additional boards that you want to create yourself and configure those accordingly, then you can do that. Now, the actual JSON file, you may think it's technical, but it's relatively easy to make those updates as well. Because what you see today of what's been updated for us at OneKloudX is stuff that I've set up, and I'm not a programmer. So there is that element. We can train you up on how to kind of do that sort of stuff if you want to build those additional boards. So that's pretty much the actual costing side of it. And if you've got greater than 10 boards, so as you continue to use the solution and wanting to expand it into the organization further, then it's basically a couple $1,000s more than the actual up to 10 board price that we've got today. Now, as part of this session, we want to offer to everyone here today the first month subscription free. So the average implementation is a good 2 to 3 weeks to get this sorted out. And that's predicated on your availability as well, us getting the workshop done, and then supporting you in the testing and rolling that out. So once that's signed off in the Sandbox environment, we can therefore push that into production. At that point in time is when you'll start paying for the individual licenses that we've got. So that's pretty much what the license structure looks like. Hopefully we've answered or walked you through the solution, giving you a bit of an understanding as to how it can be set up, the capabilities around the solution, and also a use case with Ian walking through how they're using it today at FMG. Any questions from the team out there? No questions? So for those that are interested, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to answer any further questions that you may have. If you are interested, this offer ends in the next few weeks. So yeah, it'd be great to get your interest in this. We feel like that this is a solution that we want to not just take locally to our customers, which is what our first step is here today, but also to take this to the wider market and internationally. Reason being, there is no other Kanban solution built on the NetSuite platform in the market. I know a few customers of ours are using Trello, and HubSpot for managing deals and managing different workflows and repairs in their organization. And this is, I feel like, a game changer for the offering in the market, because there was a previous solution out there in Europe that didn't seem to have the functionality, and therefore this is why this solution has been built out there. And any questions you've got, please give me a call, reach out, and happy to answer and support you guys with anything you need. A good session must show that we must have covered it all. And other questions. Thank you very much for your time, Ian. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to come and show the solution and being a support for us.
My pleasure.
Okay, everyone. Enjoy your day. Thank you, and take care.